And welcome to the online preview of the 2020 study of interventions for organizational development in SEA, India, and Hong Kong survey results. This is a pioneering research developed by Afni Martin, Nandini Dasgosal, and Maria Zotsaki. So there will be a lot in store today. So before I actually go into telling you what's going to be happening today, I'm Ray and I'm an MC as well as a speaking coach, and I'm excited to be your host today. So before we go into the timeline, I want to see who is with us on the call today. So type in the chat to see which country you're from. Okay, so we have people from India, Philippines. Wow, so many people from all over the world. And this is what makes it so exciting because it's really like a global audience, and we have coaches and HR leaders and C-suite leaders from all over the world. Okay, so continue putting in the chat below. Great. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, guys, for all your interaction and for just being so excited to hear what's in store today, the key findings, as well as the panel discussion. So yes, as I was mentioning, today we'll have Afni Martin later, which is the head of research. She will be sharing the key findings of this 2020 study of interventions for organizational development in SEA, India, and HK in Hong Kong survey results. And then there will be a panel discussion to discuss the implications of the findings, key challenges, and opportunities in developing organizations in these unprecedented times. So I've also heard from Afni herself, which is our director of research, that the results of the survey show some very surprising findings as well. It's going to be a fun session, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce Afni, our Director of Research. Afni has volunteered over 500 hours in bringing this project from a dream to reality in bringing communities across the region and industries together. Afni is the founder of an ICF accredited coach training school, coach trainer, mentor to coaches, and also inner child integration therapist. Afni works with coaches, teams, and organizations to change mindsets, cultures, and behaviors. So without further ado, I want to hear a virtual round of applause, please, right? Show us some support. A virtual round of applause for Avni, the head of research for this survey results, and she will be sharing with us the key findings of the survey. Avni, please.
Thank you very much, Ray, for that very, very, very warm welcome and introduction to the project and setting the context for our event. Very, very grateful, Ray, to have you as our host and MC. So thank you, everyone, for being here with us today and making the time this Saturday afternoon. It's wonderful to have you here. Let me start by introducing our key partners and collaborators. Our gratitude really goes to all the ICF chapters and HR institutes across the region who have partnered with us to collaborate on the project. And the leadership, the enthusiasm, the friendships that have developed over the years, and contributions by each and every single leader with these organizations is deeply appreciated by ICF Singapore and our team. I would also like to introduce and acknowledge our team. Maria, I hope your video is turned on. Maria will be taking care of the chat as well today. She is a co-writer of the research report. Tanya, she's our communications expert. Nanni, she is she's the research consultant. Deepak has done all the graphs and charts for the entire report. Chaya has done a lot of communications, and Anne has designed the look and feel of the report. So thank you very much to our team for their contributions to make our dream a reality. So speaking of dreams, let me start by sharing the purpose of the project. As a coaching institute, we wanted to better understand the current state of play for interventions for OD and how coaching is positioned within OD and how the industry is evolving. And to do this in a more comprehensive way, we wanted to bring different communities across different regions and industries together that are very strong standing alone, and they're even stronger standing together, listening to one another, sharing ideas, and exchanging knowledge. And we have created that dream today by having ICF chapters across multiple regions, HR institutes and organizations sharing, speaking, and meeting together. So these are the 9 countries that our respondents have represented in Southeast Asia, India, and Hong Kong. The survey also has a wide variety of organizations with 39% of respondents are from MNCs. We have listened to over 1,300 senior decision makers for OD, who are mostly people professionals and business leaders. And even here, from the 27% who said who selected other category, 20% of that 27% are actually variations of senior people professionals and C-suite leaders. We had a wide range of industries from consumer goods, hospitality, oil and gas, banking, retail to education who have answered the survey. And with organizations with over 1,000 employees worldwide to small startups across the region have also answered the survey. So let's talk about the scope and definition of our project. OD has been studied, as you know, for over 50 years, and there are many definitions out there for OD. So for the purpose of the study, OD is defined as a planned intervention to enable change, focusing on people, systems, skills, culture, and strategy. So for designing our study, we narrowed our focus to understand the perceptions, applications, trends of 5 human process interventions for OD across organizations in Southeast Asia, India, and Hong Kong, which are coaching, counseling, mentoring, training, and consulting. And the definitions that we used for the purpose of the survey are based on ICF global reports. We started the survey design in 2017 with a team of volunteers. And following a review of existing research, we found that there was a gap in comparative studies of these 5 human process interventions. And the industry is over 300 billion worldwide, and we didn't find any research that's done that compares these interventions together. So our first step was to really conduct an exploratory conversation with HR and OD industry leaders and HR associations. And then the survey questionnaire was designed, and after several rounds of evaluation and testing, and peer reviews, we launched the survey as a pilot in November 2019. And just when we were about to launch the full survey, COVID-19 changed our world. And we felt it was imperative to understand the impact of the pandemic on OD practices. So now let's go to the heart of what we are really going to explore here today. We really wanted to explore how OD is evolving in response to the pandemic, what changes we're noticing in OD interventions, and also better understand the needs of organizations, how they're being met, if and how return on investment is being measured. And finally, what are some of the key drivers for choosing service providers, and what are the views of HR and business decision makers on coaching? So some of the top areas that we're going to explore today are: how is OD evolving and responding to the pandemic? What changes are we noticing in interventions for OD? How are OD needs changing in the region? The challenges and opportunities around return on investment, and whether organizations are going more internal or external, and whether organizations are looking to develop more multiple interventions. And how exactly is coaching perceived by business leaders and people professionals? So let's start by having a look at the first question, which is: how is OD evolving and responding to the pandemic? So as I shared, we launched the survey as the pandemic was just unfolding. So we added an open-ended question to ask our participants, how is COVID-19 likely to impact all the investments and in OD for their organizations? And we used thematic analysis to analyze 539 responses. And as we did thematic analysis, 5 key themes emerged. And whilst it was evidently clear that there was a slowdown of investment, external investment, it was also very clear that organizations are looking to innovate how they do OD, and through digitization, all kinds of innovation things were mentioned in the open-ended questions, and also with a particular focus on employee well-being. So it became really clear that OD is really fronting the change and managing the pandemic. Aside this, we also grouped the key themes together, and it was interesting and encouraging to see that despite reported concerns from organizations around employee well-being and business slowdown, 53% of the responses out of these 539 were actually positive. Let's have a look at what changes are we noticing in the interventions. So we asked the respondents to pick top 3 interventions that best serve their OD needs in the previous and the following fiscal years. And our data indicates that training is still, not surprisingly, central to OD practices by over a third of respondents, and that coaching is coming on par with training in the coming fiscal year. Mentoring has, of course, established a role in organizational life, and it's stable. And interestingly, a small increase is still observed in counseling as OD interventions. And that's perhaps because of the impact of pandemic on mental health of employees. And we found that undisputably, training is, of course, still seen as the most impactful intervention of the 5, with 83% respondents. And that is the case across all industries, countries, and types of organizations represented in the sample. It should also be noted that all the interventions do meet and exceed expectations by over half of the respondents. So let's have a look at this. We found that 50% of the respondents report that people and skills development are their top OD agendas, with 22% closely following for cultural change. And 50% of the respondents suggest that people and skills development are at the top of their agenda. And so when we asked them that which intervention best meets each of their OD needs, it became clear that for people and skills, training is very high, and then again, coaching is very closely following closely next to it. We asked the respondents how many people are actually measuring return on investment, and we found that only 45% of organizations across the region are measuring return on investment for OD interventions. And so later on, when we have our panel discussion, it will be really interesting to explore some of the key challenges and opportunities in measuring return on investments. So how keen are organizations to develop internal OD capabilities? So when respondents were asked about whether they expect internal delivery of OD interventions to be expanded, we found that an overwhelming majority gave a positive response to that. So it's expected for mentoring and training, which are often delivered internally. but it was particularly interesting and surprising for interventions like coaching and counseling, which are usually delivered by external providers. So it's quite clear that developing people and teams is an integral part of OD practices. And also, the new ICF team coaching competencies detail how coaches can operate internally by engaging with multiple stakeholders, challenging team collective awareness, and fostering team development to facilitate desired outcomes. So how important is it really for providers to have expertise in multiple interventions? We were curious to find out, what do organizations think about that? And this was a really surprising find. We found that 67% of the respondents that answered the survey report that they prefer service providers to have expertise in multiple interventions. And more than half indicated that the key reason for this are that it's basically, they appreciate the fact that if one service provider can have multiple interventions, they feel that they are better able to deliver the results. And also they were looking for providers who can basically provide customized solutions. So these were some of the answers that they shared, that this is why they want multiple interventions. So it appears that providers' ability to identify business challenges and implement the best results, along with the flexibility to work across different interventions and domains, is preferred and more suited for people who are seeking these service providers. So, being a coaching institute, we were curious to learn more about how is coaching perceived by people professionals and business leaders? And first thing we could see is that coaching as a profession has really matured over the last 20 years, because 77% of the respondents shared that they hold a positive perception of coaching. And it's interesting to also see that 41% regard coaching as an interesting tool and 22% indispensable, and only 14% share that it's a prestige symbol. So later on, we're looking forward to exploring with our panelists some of these questions as to how do we really convert an interest in working with a coach into a coaching contract, and as it presents an opportunity for significant growth. And also 11% share that it's a remedial tool. So how do we really shift this perception of it being a remedial tool to becoming indispensable? So as coaching becomes more established, professional qualifications are also become more important, and not just for coaches, but also for decision makers. So we asked respondents about how much on average they spend on coaching sessions. And it's quite evident that it's worth investing in being credentialed. So these are the figures on average that we had. And more detailed variations in countries are highlighted in the main report. So since we have such highly esteemed panelists, we have kept our findings as short and succinct as possible to allow maximum time for our panel discussions. This is actually a very brief preview of the survey results, and the main report contains a lot more results with a lot more depth and analysis for different countries. So if any country is having a very different data than the generic data, Asia-wide data, then those countries are listed separately. Same for industries, and a lot more questions and a lot more data points are shared within the report. Over to you, Ray.
Welcome back. Okay, so I hope that that breakout session was really fruitful and you got to meet new coaches or experts or HR specialists from people from all around the world. If you enjoyed the breakout room, can you tell us in the chat if you enjoyed it? Yes. Okay, I'm seeing many yes. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Thumbs up. Oh, okay, so some people say it's too short. Okay, so if you remember any of the people you met, hopefully you remember them. You can just go on LinkedIn and connect with them. That is just, the amazing thing about this global webinar over here. Okay, so right now we're gonna move straight to panel questions because I'm sure everybody is really excited to hear from our esteemed panelists for today. So just to introduce a little bit of the panel themselves. Okay, so the first person on our panel we have is Angelina Muki. She is now the president-elect of the People's Management Association of the Philippines, the country's leading association of people managers. She is a thought leader with a track record in people strategy development, change management, and execution of transformation initiatives, as well as the full spectrum of HR operations. She's also the author of 2 books, Smart Moves in the Workplace and Smart Moves for Working Women. Hi, Angelina.
Hi, Ray. So happy to be here. Welcome, everyone. It's been a great session so far, and I'm sure we have more interesting discussions coming up.
Awesome. Wow, Angelina looking really bright today. Okay, so our next panelist is Alvin Goh. He is the Executive Director SHRI Singapore, and he is right now leading a non-profit professional HR body, which represents a strong network of members comprising individuals and organizations across diverse industries. Alvin has more than 15 years of international experience in HR leadership roles with key strategic and decision-making responsibilities and possesses a strong passion for human capital management and transformation. Hi, Alvin.
Hi, Ray. Thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Glad to be on the panel itself. Looking forward to our discussions and also the questions that are. I had a little sneak peek in my little breakout group itself earlier on. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Alvin. Next up on our panel, we have Selena Lim. She is the director of OD. She's the OD director of Intel Asia. In her experience of over a decade, she has led and developed a team of internal HR consultants in delivering solutions to the rapid and dynamic organizational transformations and development. She has her expertise in transition change management, leadership and culture development, talent management, assessing organization capability, designing relevant organization or people solutions. Hi, Selena.
Hello. Hi, everybody. It's great to be part of this conversation, and thank you very much to ICF for organizing and bringing different communities together. Just a quick preview from the questions earlier. I'm just super glad that, we are connecting. There's so many people are thinking about similar issues and having the same vision to move coaching forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Selena. Next up on our panel, we have Jean-Francois Cosson. And I'm so sorry if I pronounced his name wrong. Okay, you have to correct me later. He's right now the ICF Global Chairman 2019, based in Thailand, and he has been a global executive coach since 2006. He has since served 12,000, and I'm sure now more because that was a couple of months ago, 12,000 coaching hours, served over 1,000 executives and dozens of executive teams, traveling to 35 countries of 5 continents to work with them. He is accredited as a Master Certified Coach by the International Coach Federation, the highest distinction in the profession. And he coaches CEOs, region, and country presidents and board members. Hi, Jean.
And hi.
Please correct me for how do I pronounce your name?
You did that very well, and everybody calls me JF anyway.
Yes.
Also, my full initials JFC. I do sometimes also respond to KFC or JFK. It's all good. And I want to say I'm so very happy to be with you all in such a very unique kind of historical moment where our communities come together as one. And I thank ICF Singapore, Avni and the team for having made that possible through amazing body of research. Looking forward to the debate and to interacting with everyone.
Lovely. JFC, yeah. I'm sure JFC here has a really good sense of humor. And last but not least, to introduce our last and final panelists, we have Gangpriya Chakravarti. She is the president of the Chennai chapter and board member of the National HRD Network, India's largest body for HR professionals. She's also the managing director at Ford's Global Business Services Organization. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a postgraduate degree in personnel management and industrial relations. And she is an ICF certified coach too. Hi, Gangpriya.
Hi.
Gangapriya. So sorry, Gangapriya.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. First of all, thanks so much for this opportunity to be on this esteemed panel. Looking forward to this very exciting discussion. From what I have seen so far, this is such a diverse set of participants from pretty much across the world, I think. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of learning for everyone that's on this call. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. And I love your shawl. Very bright. Thanks so much, Gangapriya. So that is our panel for today. And together with Afni, which is our head of research, we have our co-moderator, Nandini Das Gosal. Nandini is an executive coach and corporate facilitator with 20 plus years in the industry. She is really passionate about helping people and teams navigate change and find their strengths and purpose. She works with individuals and corporates on women leadership, self-discovery, cultural orientation, collaboration, and team effectiveness. She is right now actually, she has worked with as a research consultant in the research team for this project with Afni, and hence is a perfect co-moderator for our panel today. Okay, so I know that you have all questions already ready from the breakout room just now. Feel free once again to put any of your questions in the chat below, because we have our volunteers actually reading through your questions, and we will be choosing some questions to answer at the end. Okay, and if we have some time, maybe our panelists can even pick some of the questions to answer as well. So I'll be passing the time on to our lovely moderators, Afni and Nandini.
Thank you very, very much, Ray. And thank you very much to all of our esteemed panelists. We are very, very grateful to have you here. Alvin, Gangapriya, Selena, JF, and Angelina. Thank you very much for being with us here today. So we would like to start by really just asking you your thoughts on the report and the research, and we'd love to hear from the panelists about what are your thoughts on the impact of doing this research and creating this report and bringing these communities together. And we'd love to start with Alvin, if that's okay, Alvin.
Yeah. So I think number one, that what really comes to mind is that, the report on 2020 inventions for the OD function itself, it comes at a very appropriate time where we've been put on a very accelerated path of innovation and digital transformation, of course, brought about by COVID-19 itself. 2020 is also the start of a new decade that reflects the entrance of the digital nomads. All right, that's coming out into the workforce, and timely that organizations are also responding to the rapid evolving needs of the workforce as a result of COVID-19. We're also seeing the beginnings of collective leadership, which, as this research report has put together various ICF chapters around the world, multiple countries itself, and that's basically collective leadership itself, right? And brought where this project has got us to. And we have various organizations coming together, and I'm hopeful to see that more people, professionals, business leaders, to be inspired by this collective leadership to further collaborate across the regions and to better the workplace and workforce for us going forward in the future itself.
Thank you, Alvin. That's great to hear that. What are your thoughts on this, Lynn? What would you say?
Yeah, I totally agree with how this research is so relevant and so helpful at this time. It impacts both HR practitioners internal to the organization, as well as external consultants, coaches, who partner with internal practitioners for HR. Friends, there's one thing that we can really be sure about today. This virtual world is our reality. It's our new normal, and it can become the better normal depending on how we shape it. This crisis gave us the opportunity to collaborate more active across the globe. Look at this session that we're having today, and when I just look at the survey participants, truly we can say boundaries have fallen away, and we are seeing the rise of the global talent pool. Together, in all of our capacities in HR, we must lead our organizations to continuously strive to uplift humanity. That is what makes our work meaningful. We can do this together with more surveys, more conversations like this, and we can have more collaborative efforts to really transform ourselves as well as our organizations for growth, recreate and reinvent HR, and uplift.
Thank you very much, Angelina. I think your screen's a little bit frozen at the moment, but really wonderful point shared about how the world is changing. We are here together from across so many countries. Sorry, Angelina, you're just back online. Yes. Your screen was frozen for a few seconds. Please continue.
Oh, I was just saying, together we can continue survey efforts like this, continue our collaborative efforts, because the key as we look forward to 2021 is for us to transform ourselves as well as our organizations for growth, reinvent the way we do things in HR, because our main purpose really is to uplift humanity, and that means uplifting people in the workplaces.
Wow, thank you very much for that. Very well said. So what are the thoughts of other panelists? What would you like to share as we open our panel discussion?
Yeah, maybe I'll go next. I think, yeah, besides the fact that we are at the start of a new decade and one that sort of come upon us in a very different way and is presenting new challenges and new ways of working, I also believe that research such as this is very basic to understanding what industry needs are, what OD practices are, what companies are doing. And it's just a sort of reflection and expectation setting around what OD will look like and currently looks like in the world that has been studied. I think it's a good idea for an independent organization like ICF in this case to look at how organizations are deploying initiatives in OD, what tools, what methodologies and approaches they're adopting, what kinds of problems and issues are organizations confronting, and what do they try to address through these interventions. So in a sense, a study like this is a reflection of the state of OD interventions in the market, and it's like a good dipstick of what's the prevailing practice and expectations. I think from the perspective of organizations, it's good to have an idea and benchmark against what other companies are doing. There's a lot of learning in it, and also familiarize oneself with contemporary thinking in this space, so that organizations can take actions based on these learnings. For individuals who are operating in the space of OD, I think they get a better understanding of organizational issues, what are the OD trends, what's latest, what does the market need, what's working, what's not working, so that they can sort of sharpen their own offerings and sharpen their own skill sets so that they can be relevant in this area. And for practitioners, I think such research provides a good understanding of market trends and market needs. And they have an opportunity to use this to pitch for business and support organizations. So it's in a sense, a market study. So I think studies such as this serve several purposes, and they sort of speak very differently to people who actually use them.
Wow, very comprehensive there, Ganga Priya. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, I'd love to hear from Selena and JF, either of you, what are your thoughts?
I can go next. Thanks,
Sure.
Afi. So first off, I truly appreciate, this initiative of pulling together communities of practitioners, both internal and external, together in this space, right? To me, I see this research is creating a platform for us to have a starting point of a conversation, to probably even disrupt our thinking about how we, approach OD, how we approach coaching, how we start merging this couple of fields together to best, create the impact for not just business, but also the communities. So this, I would really love that, this kind of think about this as a starting point for collaboration to take place. I think the other second aspect that is really unique for me coming up from this research is, I do think that there is, lacking of a body of research, particularly for countries in India, Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, and in Asia in general, that we can contribute to, particularly in this field. I was just talking in one of this room, in the breakout room, where COVID has presented itself a trend for us to see that there are some clear differences in kind of the individualistic versus the collectivism versions of cultures. So I'd really like to kind of figure out, right, how do we collaborate more as we move forward to present more of kind of the body of knowledge from Asia and be able to compare and contrast to see whether there are nuances related in this field between different cultures as well. So thanks for taking the courage to start the ball rolling here.
Thank you very much. And courage it certainly took, because, I think one of the things that, we found at the beginning was people saying that it's never been done before, OD is so big, what are you going to do in OD? And there are so many interventions, and we had to get over all of these hurdles, really. Nandini and I were working our way through many of these hurdles and really learning to define exactly what our scope is. And also definitely, like you say, one of the keen passions and interest in the research was to bring people together. And that is, and yes, I've never delivered something to hundreds of people. So I think I was a bit nervous in the first half of the conversation. I have to admit that. But really, my gratitude for the fact that we are all here together, HR institutes, countries, coaches, industry practitioners, is just like, my gratitude is just infinite right now. So yeah, thank you all for your support, collaboration, positivity, and making it happen. And yeah, we'll do more research, Selena, on that note. Basically it calls for more research, and there are so many ideas that have come out of this. There's so much qualitative stuff we can do. So many questions have come up that we can now start collaborating together. Like some big companies have reached out saying they want to do some research, extend this forward. So yes, all kinds of possibilities are there. So yes, JF, how are you?
Well, I'll pick up where you left off, really, with the expression of my gratitude to all the team who spent hundreds and hundreds of hours to give this research exceptional breadth and depth, and give us all in this community a very precious tool to move forward, right? And what I've particularly remembered actually from the body of research, right, is that most welcome reconfirmation that OD is at the forefront of managing change at this moment that calls for reimagination, and I would even say reinvention of the way we are and the way we lead and the way we coach, in fact. And I've noticed as well that there is a very healthy and important momentum in the growth of one-on-one interventions. In that time of chaos, it matters because one-on-one interventions help with employees' well-being, help them clarify their thinking, decide their way forward, and then take action, right? It matters much. I was happy as well to notice that coaching elicits a 75% perception, positive perception, right?
Yeah.
And also that there is an anticipation that in the next fiscal year, it will be on par with training in terms of choice of intervention, right? While mentoring and counseling stay strongly where they are, And we all know they are so important. And also excitedly, I noticed the impact of coaching is at 65%, and that's a way to grow. And we'll talk about that a bit later. So yeah, thanks again. Great job.
Thank you very much, JF. Great to have you here as well. So like you shared about how the interventions are evolving and how the whole industry is evolving. So like 83% have shared that training meets or exceeds expectations, and coaching is, like JF just said, is coming on par. So Selena, I'd love to hear from you about, because you are, as we were speaking before, you're working in the trenches, you are the OD practitioner, you know, in charge of organizational development across Asia for Intel. So, you know, being the person who is doing OD day in, day out, what are your thoughts on how the interventions are evolving and changing, and what trends or gaps or overlaps are you seeing?
I think that's a great question. If I were to kind of reflect into what we are really seeing on the ground, and by the way, you know, I think from a client's perspective, oftentimes they find all these terms really confusing between, and what we try to really end up do with them is to kind of speak their language and to really use whatever that we have as a starting point. So I think one thing that I would probably validate is that, you know, from the research results, we're seeing that training, for example, is often the beginning point. You know, when we are having conversations with business leaders, managers, etc., what comes to mind as a solution is always training. However, what we are learning as well is that we have an opportunity to turn training really into a more, I would say, a different kind of an OD solution. And that process actually is being guided by OD consultants internally, you know, practitioners, based on how we apply different OD lenses in terms of diagnosing as well as development of the intervention. What we've seen recently as well is that, you know, and I'm not sure how much of this has also the cultural element to it, is that, you know, by creating experiences of even small little experiences for people to actually go through, they actually develop greater appreciation of, you know, what you could put on the table beyond training. So at this point in time, what I'm kind of challenging my team to do is really think about that, fine, if you're getting training as a request, how could we then, you know, deepen the conversation for these to really bring in other elements, be it, you know, coaching, be it team, you know, individual coaching, team coaching, or just kind of systemic solutions beyond that. I think, you know, it's also, we're starting to also see that, you know, training is moving away more and more from just pure knowledge and skill acquisition, you know, kind of pointing back to the few points there. And it's turning more into, you know, how do we help change and shift mindsets? How do we help people build support systems that, you know, connect them to real life challenges? So internally, we are really starting to experiment more on, you know, how do we help people to learn in the flow of work? You know, given this kind of environment that we're in, even time becomes a very expensive commodity that we have to all compete with. So thinking through how to design that in and how to, you know, prepare for them to rebound from challenges, right? Because I think many training professionals will probably realize we deliver great training, but none of them might really stick, because the first thing that people experience the moment they have a challenge, they would say, this is too hard for me. I'm not going to go into that space, right? So I think in this age of information and knowledge where it's widely available, I think one of our challenge as, you know, a community here is, how do we help the masses to have the ability to learn how to learn, to integrate the learning into their work and practice, and then to translate it to real practice and habit. And that's the new capability that we will need here.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. And you know, Selena, that really reminds me of the research that was done by HCI. They interviewed 500 CEOs about what makes leadership and organizational development change initiatives be sustainable. And they came up with 4 things there. And out of those 4 things, you've actually almost like summarized all of those 4 things in your conversation, really. They said that context is important, of course, that, you know, that what you're doing has to fit the company. shifting mindsets is another big thing that they mentioned, that if any initiative can actually shift the mindsets and the way people think, then that's going to be more sustainable. And then after the mindset is shift, they said that it has to be around actions, like you have to put it into real actions and then be able to measure it. So, a lot of these things you just shared, so it very much relates to a lot of the research that's done around it. And that also explains how training is now starting to evolve and shift to becoming deeper, more mindset driven. Thank you for sharing that. So Alvin, what are your thoughts on this? How are the interventions evolving from your perspective?
So what really comes to mind is, number one, that we really need to redesign and repurpose, right, a lot of our HR interventions, be it training, be it com and ben, be it OD and L, as the world continues to evolve, right? So there is a lot of sentiments here in the Singapore and perhaps also in the region that a lot of the business leaders are waiting for things to happen, all right, and before adopting and changing. My view is that we should not prevent things from happening. We should actually embrace these changes that is going to come forward. And that's one thing that I really like to see, and is that imagine if we were to combine the various OD lenses, all right, beyond just designing target operating models, designing revenue models and so forth, and put together every HR function component together and create this thing, what I call a people intelligence view, all right? And with that people intelligence view to combine and complement the business intelligence, that will then really make the HR function itself really becoming a true blue strategic business partner. All right, we've been giving a lot. I mean, I'm just going to generalize here a little bit, but we've been really giving the HR business concept a lot of lip service. We have been very reactive. But imagine if you combine all the analytics using digital platforms and so forth, and you are able to create an environment whereby we complement the business in terms of understanding where the business direction is going and complementing it with the business intelligence portion. I think it's going to be so powerful. All right. And thus, on that note itself, there's opportunities for us to really reinvent ourselves, right? Embrace the uncertainty and also innovate, all right? OD as a function as well. Right? So there it goes. Business intelligence equals and complemented with people intelligence. Thank you.
Fantastic. Sounds great and exciting, doesn't it, everyone? People intelligence view and business intelligence, combining that together to evolve and shape and repurpose interventions. That's brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that. So Gangapriya, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, training being the most popular OD intervention is really not surprising. It's been around for a long time. It's been the primary tool to enable employees to do their jobs effectively, build the skills that are required. And we've seen it also sort of evolve with changes in technology and disruptions in business because, constantly employees have to pick up new skills. Organizations have to sort of figure out what will work for them in the future. So I think upskilling as an imperative, especially in this VUCA world, seems quite intuitively it sort of makes sense. And in reality as well, we see that happening. Besides, most organizations have in-house training teams. Yeah, and there are capabilities that enable training as an OD intervention to be run as well as to be done effectively. At this point, I'd just like to talk about a study that the NHRD team in India did late 2019. It seems like that was quite some time ago, and it was a different world then. Since we were embarking on a new decade, we decided what would be the priorities for HR in 2030, 10 years hence, and what would be the kind of focus that HR leaders would need to take. And we found that the top focus area for HR in 2030 would be upskilling, reskilling, and reinvention, primarily because the world was changing, technology was changing very, very rapidly. Organizations, their business models were being disrupted. It came across as an overwhelming area that companies needed to focus on. In fact, we did the same study post-COVID. And while there were other areas of focus that sort of took prominence, say for instance, well-being, we found that the focus on upskilling, reskilling, and reinvention continued to be the top focus area. Because there is a realization, and perhaps it had hit us as organizations more during the pandemic, that we need to constantly change and be agile and pick up new skills and pivot ourselves so that we are continuing to be delivering on what is expected of us. So that was a very interesting finding from the study that we did. If I look at my own organization, I find that we are increasingly using combinations of OD interventions. So when it comes to leadership development, we're using both training, peer learning, and coaching for leadership development. If I look at women's leadership development, we're using both coaching and mentoring together, along with some training. If I look at young talent development, it is on-the-job training plus mentoring. So we are using a combination of OD interventions, and they are turning out to be quite effective because different people have different ways of learning. And we need to make sure that all objectives that we are trying to achieve through these interventions are met. And lastly, I would say, post-COVID, we are seeing a definite shift in the kind of skills that are required for people managers. Traditional people managerial skills focused on, team building, people management, communication, assertiveness, and things like that. And we're finding that post-COVID, what is expected of people leaders would be more in the nature of how do you show empathy? How are you going to listen better? Are you a good coach while you're being a leader? Are you being present while with your team? Do you show concern for the individual? So with all of this, we believe that our people leaders who are really the point at which a lot of the cultural change within the organization is to be delivered, need to be coaches. They need to be mentors. They need to wear different hats, and therefore we need to be looking at developing them and equipping them with skills. Even the skill of counseling, which was considered something that was quite unusual in the past. At least employees should go to their team people leaders as a first port of call before they go to a specialist. I think there is a lot that's changing, and I do believe that it'll be a mix of interventions that would work in organizations and for organizational initiatives.
Wow, yeah. That really explains all of our findings really behind the scenes, because, organizations are looking for people who can wear multiple hats. And as all of you are sharing, I'm hearing words like innovate, synthesize, evolve, and really mixing and merging different kind of modalities together. That's great. So, Nani, I'm sure you're bursting to ask some amazing questions. I'd love to, hear what thoughts and questions you have.
Yeah, thank you, Avni. And I think I'm going to straight away jump into one question, which is in the minds of pretty much all the coaches here, especially the independent coaches. So one of the major findings of our report is that there's an overwhelming intention to bring the one-on-one modalities in-house. And when the respondents were asked whether they expect internal delivery of OD interventions in the next year, a huge number have said, so much so that the graph actually looks skewed. The yes bar is over 70 in most of the cases. Now, the question to the panelists who are on the ground is that what is firstly your response to this kind of a finding, and what could be the role of external coaches in organizations, given that this is an overwhelming intention that is being expressed by the industry? I think we will first start with Lynn. Lynn, what are your views on this?
Hi, yeah, thank you very much. There is an overwhelming need because we are in a very unique situation globally, right? In the past, OD was seen at the sidelines of core HR, and you'd see compensation, total rewards, talent acquisition as being in the forefront. But now that we see how people need development and the culture needs to respond to the unique needs of our times, we see the overwhelming need now for more OD interventions. And there are key drivers for developing internal expertise and capabilities, because when you look at it, external consultants must work closely together in partnership with the internal HR practitioners for two reasons: sustainability and enhancing the value of impact of OD to the organization. When the internal practitioner has expertise in OD, there is better partnership with the external coach or consultant. There is greater depth in the diagnosis, which is very critical to designing the organization's interventions. Without clarity in the diagnosis, the intervention may not be the most appropriate. And that happens only when there's a real partnership, there's transparency in sharing information and the context, and the person internal to the organization has the expertise to anticipate what might be needed. With that, the organization will be better equipped to take forward the initiatives in the long term so that culture and people development are sustained. That is key, sustainability, and that's where we get the real value. In terms of coaching, as a specific example, I see coaching not as simply a one-time, one-on-one program for certain key individuals, probably in the high potential talent pool. Rather, what I've done in the organization that I served for the past 5 years is to make sure that we build a coaching culture. That coaching culture is key to performance management as well as employee engagement. And we need all HR and people managers to be trained in coaching skills to lead people to develop their potential. So when you look at an intervention, developing internal expertise, building a coaching culture is what would make the organization vibrant as well as dynamic and better equipped to cope with the situations that we are facing today.
Wonderful. And I really like the use of the term diagnosis and working as a partner. And that kind of, gives external coaches a direction as to, how to even speak with HR within organizations. I would now like to hear from Selena as to what does she make of this trend and how can external coaches work more closely and offer services to organizations?
Yeah, Nandini. So I was thinking about this and also the past few conversations that we've been having internally, as well as with a couple of other companies out there that has been discussing about this topic, right? So coaching definitely is becoming an area where many organizations are starting to think about how do we scale this? I think some people might use the word, how do we democratize coaching to many folks, right? It used to be something where we would invest, more so with, executive levels, certain level of leadership. But given the pace, just the quick pace of how fast the world is changing, I think we are also starting to realize that changing an individual itself might not be sufficient for us to sustain an organizational culture. And as a result of that, I love what, Lynn was talking about. It's like how the key vision behind all this is, how do we make coaching become a culture within the organization? I think what organizations really need and are struggling with as of now is how do you truly scale that? Because I think the realities are that costs continue to play out as something that organizations will grapple with. And so we're starting to really, maybe take coaching as a concept and And I would say break it into parts and think about this really more as a capability. And if we were to think about this as a capability and to start growing this, within communities at different levels, how would we do that, right? I would love to kind of probably, challenge all of us here, because as we do this and as we are able to crack this code, I don't think this will only, I would say, benefit organizations internally, but also benefit really the communities, right? And like what makes it, why should we really limit coaching to select individuals when, the benefits of it is so much more? So yeah, a couple of things from there that, I would probably think about here is to say, with providers, if you think about our current tool is coaching. So, like if our only tool is a hammer, we often end up seeing every problem as a nail. So what if our tool was still coaching, but we looked at it differently? What more, what other problems can we really solve as a collective whole here? So something that we challenge ourselves to think about.
Wonderful, Selena, and that's a real thought-provoking statement that you made, that convert it into a capability. And that means pretty much everyone in the organization perhaps has to have that capability. And it's probably an inflection point in the journey of coaching as a modality as well. So thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of ideas are already spinning in the heads of people who are listening in, which actually brings me to the next question, which is an aspect of this internal delivery that is being desired, which is the industry is overwhelmingly, again, saying that they would like their service providers to have expertise in multiple interventions at the same time. And while, they've given some nuances as answers, but I would really like to hear from you that what do you feel is the key driver for this need for multiple interventions from the same provider? Is it cost? Is it expertise? What in your practical experience you see? And what could be the reasons? And is this trend here to stay? Yes, Selena, I'm addressing this to you.
Yeah. Well, this I think relates back to what you were talking about earlier as well. Just back to the conversation that there are views that are merging. Internally, if I take a step back and try to answer that question from the perspective of why are organizations, really having and investing in internal capabilities, and how is that driving to this need that might actually, stay? The key driver I would say with this is that I'm seeing really many organizations being thrown into complex transformation. They're forced into this in a large extent. So working in the trenches, one of the things that I'm seeing, us do more of is that I think internal organizations are investing in internal capabilities, because there is a need for us to have a delicate balance on understanding deeply existing, organizational culture and dynamics, and figuring out how to shift that, right, over time. It takes the internal consultants to really look at how do you make things stick and goes beyond, taking the activities itself. I think the partnership that we can establish really with the external providers here is to say, to think through about how we could, for me, it's like if we were to hire somebody externally, what we're looking for are people that can play up and down the stack, who could probably take a step back as well to say, help us to think through and diagnose more deeply, right? What are the challenges that we're facing? Because we might be missing certain perspectives. The second value that, we really see from, external providers is when they're able to kind of bring in that outside-in perspective to complement what we might be missing internally. So I think, and the third thing that I'd probably be looking for is, just taking time to understand how the existing solutions really integrate with, internal systems, which oftentimes is being missed, right? So in the past, it'd be like, here's a solution, we run this for a while, and then it might not stick. And I think more and more organizations, therefore, are investing in the internal and external capabilities to enable better integration at the end of the day.
Wonderful. Thank you, Selena. And I would like to open this question up to some of the other panelists, and please feel free to give your soundbite on why do you think multiple interventions are being desired by organizations?
I may just take a shot at it. I think Selena sort of captured most aspects, you very, very, very beautifully in her response. But just one more thing that I would like, or rather two things that I would like to add is that one, you really don't, you need to have a deep understanding of the context of the organization. Yeah, and who better than internal people to really understand that? And you don't want to do it with multiple people, and you can't expect multiple people to have the same level of depth and understanding of an organizational situation. So, so the more services that people who understand the organization, its context, its challenges, where it wants to get to, the easier it becomes for the organization, and takes a lot of the time, effort, and money that's involved in providing this to multiple stakeholders. The other thing is that, when we have multiple service providers, many times they use their own methodologies that sort of perhaps work in conflict sometimes. They are repetitive sometimes, and organizations really don't want to go about it that way. They want to make things efficient for their employees. They want to make it, they don't want to redo anything. So I think, again, having somebody who can sort of bring several of these capabilities to the organization would be preferred over having different people doing different aspects. But of course, like a lot of organizations these days are doing, many of these OD interventions are being done by the organizations themselves, with perhaps consultant support to reflect on what's missing, what could we do better, what are other organizations doing that may work for us.
Thank you so much. And yes, please, from JFK, and especially with the coaching perspective, it would be wonderful to hear from you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share, based on the experience of some of my clients who have hired multiple services providers, right? Perhaps the metaphor is like you hire an orchestra conductor, and then the orchestra conductor comes with the full band, right? And it takes only one of the musicians for the music to go really wrong, in fact. And when it comes to coaching, there is this perhaps note of kind of warning, I would say. Make sure, and I'm speaking to my HR colleagues, right? Make sure when you hire multiple services providers that when it comes to coaching, they do not employ amateur coaches, because amateur coaches, like amateur musicians in a professional band, will just risk ruin the music. And it's unfortunately quite frequent that perhaps some recruitment consultancies or consulting firms will have their kind of amateur coaches inside, right? And by amateur, I mean they do a few hours a month to just help out with contracts, right? So my invitation is to make sure they don't ruin the dynamic. Then you interview them, you have them actually coach you right there and then in the interview, and you assess their caliber. So you make sure there will be good musicians in the band that the multiple services provider brings in fact. Make sense?
Absolutely. And the metaphor of an orchestra is what organizations carry with themselves, right? When they bring in all of these interventions. Avni, over to you for the next question.
So yeah, thank you very much. So again, JF, I have a question here. So in fact, this question goes to Alvin. Alvin, if that's okay. I'd love to, because we've spoken a few times before around the impact of COVID in OD and organizations. So I'd really love to ask you, from your perspective, what are you seeing as an impact of OD, as an impact of COVID for OD?
So on that note itself, you think about it, 2020, right? In January itself, becoming into a new year, everybody was hyped up. The markets were all up. Standard & Poor's, the Dow Jones, all were up itself. Everybody was looking forward to a very good year ahead. And when COVID-19 hit, the world took a turn, and we hear buzzwords like agility, adaptability, change and transformation, and everything of this nature came about, right? So as I shared a little bit, right, in my breakout room earlier on, 2020 is not only about COVID-19, it's also about all these changes, but more importantly, it has given us a sneak peek into what the future holds in 2021 and beyond. And 2021 and beyond is about all things new ways of working, new workforce compositions that's coming into the workforce. I'm seeing also the enhancements and the growth of the gig economy as organizations realize that, hey, look, I can start to offshore the work easily and much more better, and productivity will still also be there, right? New operating requirements as people have work from home policies, new infrastructure from the digital side is coming into play. No more walking to the meeting rooms and waiting for people to arrive in the meeting room physically. Everybody's just click on a button and there we are, here we are, on the Zoom panel itself. So 2021 and beyond, all right, is going to give us a lot of new things, new flexible working arrangements, as I said, OKRs, perhaps, new training methods as well, using gamifications, as what we're also seeing in the workplace today. All right, a lot of training has been taken on from the virtual platforms, and gamifications is actually coming alive. And that's what makes me so excited about going into the future itself. All right, training is not going to be much more trainer-led, or facilitator-led. It's going to be so much more fun about it, right? And it brings back to me childhood memories about playing games and learning from my gaming days as well. So I think that's something that COVID-19 itself has brought about.
Thank you very much for bringing fun and play into OD. That's great. That's exactly how we want to evolve, right, Selena and everyone else? Bring fun and play into organizations. Yes, indeed. So look, we are really rapidly running out of time, and there's quite a few different items that we need to fit in. But I'd really love to hear from JF. What are your thoughts on how the pandemic is impacting the industry?
Thanks very much. And very briefly, I quite concur with Alvin, actually. I see the COVID crisis as actually an accelerator to the future that we were going to have anyhow, in fact, and also as an acid test of the strengths of our organizations, right? Are they tele-robust or are they tele-fragile, right? And in that context, that's a bit traumatic for a while to employees. Of course, I'm delighted to see an upward trend in one-on-one interventions, in fact, right? Because employees can be disorientated and lose some of their positive energy because the uncertainty attacks as much as their sense of self and, of course, their vision of the future and their relationships all the same, which our neuroscience has shown boosters of or busters of positive energy, right? So in that context, we've got to keep in mind that coaching, well, the coach actually role models the support, the unconditional love, I would say, that will help employees to regain a sense of hope, a sense of self, clarity for their way forward, and whether the coach is a leader acting as a coach or an internal coach or an external coach, right? And so making sure coaches can do their work well remotely throughout this period is obviously going to help a lot. And I'm seeing that at play. I'm seeing more and more organizations offering just-in-time coaching and also just-in-time counseling, all the same. Very important. Alvin?
Yes, thank you very much for sharing that. So we have another couple of questions. And so I think one of the questions is to you again, JF, actually, because how do we really turn this idea of 41% who are interested in coaching to real contracts? So how can coaches work to turning interest into contracts, and also remedial tool into indispensable tool? So I guess what I'm asking is, how can coaches unleash the potential of coaching itself?
Yeah, and just to let all of the statistics in that question speak, right? Next to 41% as coaching is interesting, there was 22% people thinking it's indispensable, 14% thinking it's a prestige symbol. And when you contrast the numbers with what we would have gotten like just 5 years ago, right? Well, the 11% of remedial at that time was probably going to get the outright majority of the votes, like 50%, right? Because there was that now outdated perception that coaching was used to fix flawed executives. And the truth is it doesn't work that well, right? So the first thing, it doesn't work well at all, actually, right? It's not a fixing tool, it's a developmental approach, right? So this needs to be further clarified. I guess there are only a few percent of people who are perhaps outdated in their perception of what coaching is all about. I want to say also, out of fairness, that when we look at a global survey, in fact, which was carried out recently by the Human Capital Institute, and they interviewed people in 5 continents, 100 plus countries. They showed that coaching was very satisfied, or people were very satisfied or satisfied with coaching, up to 78%. In fact, so in line with what your survey showed, Avni, right? And very interestingly also, they found out that the two most effective intervention on that worldwide gauge were one-on-one coaching and group coaching, group work coaching with a professional coach practitioner, in fact. And that, I think, is perhaps something we can survey next time around, right? Work group coaching, in fact. So we catalyze the intelligence of teams, as coaches know how to, in fact, right? Now, my advice to coaches, right, to help further advance the respect for the industry is to really, as David Peterson, who's the former head of coaching at Google, said, right, in your coaching sessions, go fast to the heart of the matter, go deep, right? Explore in depth in this zone of discomfort, and then come out very strong with a compelling action plan for people to do. So as a result, your coaches will not just be satisfied, they will be satisfied way over their expectation, and then will become ambassadors for coaching. In fact, I'll share in the chat box a couple of links to that HCI survey I mentioned about building a coaching culture, and a couple more things, in fact. So people who want perhaps to also take a look at the global survey on a similar topic can indulge themselves. And also invite everyone to enjoy the ICF series of short videos where coaches around the world express what they gain from their coaches, in fact, right?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, JF. Thank you very much. And sorry to rush now, because we've only got 10 minutes left, and there's a couple of things that we need to fit in. And we did have an amazing question for Angelina, and Angelina will do our best to actually ask that question if we can. So if you are able to help us summarize, like what are some of the challenges and opportunities around ROI, and why are companies not measuring ROI? But we've only got 1 minute for that, if that's okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'll be very quick and precise as much as possible. The return on investment of OD, any OD intervention, really ultimately is organization capability building. It goes way beyond that specific one-time intervention, but looks very much at the long term and at the big picture. This is what would make OD strategic. We can make it easier to measure ROI if at the beginning of the design of the program, we set very clear goals, performance indicators, which are specific, measurable, achievable. We all know the SMART acronym, and success measures. The measures can be a mix of quantitative as well as qualitative indicators. This could be, for example, an increase in the engagement index overall of the people in our organization, and you can break it down further into levels of people. They're at the staff level, middle management level, or senior level. You can look at the number of new leaders produced in the talent pipeline for succession planning. Each intervention could also include a component of a business project, and we can look at the business projects completed, individual development plans, and more. These are all very clear returns on the investments undertaken for OD. When we look at training, we need to go beyond the traditional learning evaluation measures and look at organizational capacity and capability building. And this means a lot of discipline for us as OD practitioners. We don't stop at level 1, just the reaction to the program, or level 2, learning that was gained. We go to level 3, making sure that it was applied in the workplace, and then zero in on level 4, returns to the business, and then new capabilities built. When we look at this, the value of OD becomes very clear because it becomes a strategic enabler of business growth. And measuring ROI is actually a shared responsibility between the internal HR specialists in charge of the program, as well as the external provider. External providers should truly partner, as I've said earlier, long-term with the organization, so that there is sustainability and the return on investment is more readily seen through the demonstrated results.
Thank you very much, Angelina, for that wonderful summary. I think measurability is one of the most important things. And like JF in the report that you've just shared for HCI, that's one of the key cornerstones that they're talking about, measurability. And in all of our coaching conversations, without setting the measurability, it is not a coaching conversation. So that is one of the key cornerstones of coaching as well. So yes, with that in mind, we want to measure, speaking of measurability, we want to measure and get some feedback from you about how the event has been, what do you think about the report, the survey, anything. So I think I will hand you over. I would like to take a moment to first deeply thank all of our panelists. You've given some groundbreaking, amazing, thought-provoking, deep insights that I think everyone's had a feast on. I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed that, and I certainly have. And it's luckily recorded because there was a lot of information shared. So luckily recorded, it'll be available for all of us later. With that in mind, we've only got 7 more minutes left before the call, So I would hand you over to our wonderful host and MC, Ray, and she will take us through the closing sequence of what we need to do next. So thank you very, very much to our panelists. Very grateful to have you on here. Thank you.
Awesome. So once again for Ethne, thank you so much for Ethne and also Nandini for moderating this amazing panel. Thank you to our lovely panelists, Gangapriya, Angelina, Alvin, JFC, and Selena. So everybody watching right now, you really do want to go on LinkedIn and find them and connect with them if you have way more questions than that. So we can see in the comment section below, many people are saying, thank you so much, panelists, wonderful perspectives. Wow, I'm just floored. So yes, we only have a couple of minutes left. Yes, we may have time to answer maybe 1 or 2 questions, hopefully. But before that, we're going to take a photo, okay? Because this is a groundbreaking event, so we want to take a photo. Awesome. Okay, so now we have just 2 to 3 minutes. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear what you have to say. So please go on to this link that I'll actually be sharing in the chat below. Okay, so I'll be sending a link in the chat. Can everybody click that link? Okay, and give me a moment. Let me share my screen.
I love Zoom photos. We don't have to hold our tummies in. It's great, isn't it? You can just breathe and relax, let it all out. It's fine.
That's so true.
Okay, so look at the screen. It actually says, what are your thoughts after today's conference? Okay, so head on to Mentimeter. The link is actually on the chat, and just take 2 to 3 minutes to fill it in, and we'll have a bunch of words coming out, and then you can see what other people think of today's findings as well. Now we can see many people are saying thought-provoking, insightful, informative. So by the way, the bigger the word, the more that word has been used. Okay, so now the biggest word we can see is insightful. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for your participation. I can see awesome, great, inspiring, forward-looking, learning experience, thought-provoking, change and transformation, learning experience of OD and coaching, good real-world views. We have validates trends. Okay, that's actually really great insights. You can see that the report is very, very helpful and relevant to many of you here, because many people are loving it and says that it validates the trends, and also a wonderful collaboration. Some say super professional, internal intervention. That is someone's thoughts. Some people still have questions. Okay, we definitely have so many questions today. Actually, today you guys have been a great crowd. We have so many questions just flooding through the chat. I think if we answer every single question, we can be here for a couple of hours. Okay, awesome.
So yes, we can take one question. Anne, would somebody else like to just share a question? Or Anne or Maria, do you have a question that has come up very often?
Some of the participants were asking what is the road ahead for external coaches, and how can they help organizations build this internal capability? I know we've sort of have answered that question, but if there are any more views on it, I think the participants would be interested to hear from them.
Yeah, perhaps I can answer the question about what's ahead for external coaches, in fact, right? So as we help develop internal coaches, right? You could think perhaps, will there be a place for me? My answer based on research is yes, because the size of the pie for the coaching industry is growing very, very fast. And I'm tempted to say we've seen nothing yet, because the level of appreciation for that industry is growing also very fast, in fact, right? So there will always be a need for top executives who are in very solitary position to have that brainstorming partner in total confidentiality, where they can voice all of their anxieties, and believe me, they have a lot, and so there will be a job that cannot be done internally, in fact, right? That's for one. My invitation is for you to continually stretch yourself, right? We are in a job where we are humble and we are eager learner, and we let ourselves be transformed by the transformative experience. So we have the privilege to live with our clients. So work hard, stretch yourself, go from professional level to mastery level to beyond, right? Always raise the bar for yourselves, and you'll always get a good business. Remember the numbers that Avni shared with us about the average hourly fee for ACC level, PCC level, MCC level, right? MCC level at 672 on top of my mind in US dollars. And for, at the extreme opposite, a non-credential course, $52. That's an indication of the value that is generated by the conversations of categories. So just work hard, raise the bar, be an inspiration, and you'll do very, very, very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, JF. And thank you very much to all the panelists and all the participants for your contributions to the survey, for all the coaches, for reaching out to more people in the community, for NHRD, PMAP, SHRI, for reaching out to all of your members and memberships and supporting us, and all of the ICF chapters and all the friends we've made in all these ICF chapters to really help support, and all of our team members in Singapore as well, and ICF Singapore, past and present leaders, for making this happen, for bringing communities together across the region. So next time we will do it across the world, we hope, or something like this. Yes, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And
Thanks, everyone. Congratulations, Avni.
Thank you very much, Angelina. We'll just play some music whilst people are here, you know. So I think our team will probably stay back, and everyone else is welcome to stay back and just have a chat. So if anybody wants to stay back, you're welcome to, but officially the meeting has certainly ended, but we'll keep this Zoom open and just have a party and put some music on. So Ray, over to you.
Ricochet, you take your